Hi everyone and welcome to the webinar today. We're just going to give it a few seconds while everyone filters through. Okay, we seem to be getting people through okay, so we'll make a little start with the webinar. And my name is Jackie and I'm the communications manager at iMOVE. This is the next in our webinar series, which looks at outcomes and progress with iMOVE related projects. So this one looking particularly at how we roll out active transport in our communities, particularly cycling infrastructure. So I'd like to begin the webinar today by acknowledging traditional owners of the lands from which we attend this webinar and also to pay respects to elders past and present. I'm excited to say that we've got representatives from the state government, our local government, and of course our researcher at RMIT University to talk today. So we'll get some context around the project from a state perspective, also for the local context, and then some good insights into the actual research. Please feel free to put through your questions at any time in the Q&A at the bottom, and we'll respond to those at the end. We do have a few questions that have come through in the registrations, which we will tackle as well. So the speakers have been given a heads up on those. And also the webinar will be recorded. So if you want to rewatch any of this, or if you're unable to make it and you're watching this as a recording now, yeah, please feel free to get in touch if you have any further questions. So without any further ado, I will introduce our first speakers. Apologies, Bruno Spondonadi, who is the Associate Director. Sorry, Bruno, I think I did the Greek version rather than the French version of your name. The Associate Director, Transport Strategy at the Department of Transport and Planning, who's going to talk a little bit about why we're doing this project. Over to you, Bruno.
Thanks so much, Jackie, and hi everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be invited by iMOVE to give an update on this project. It's a very exciting project. Look, I'd like to acknowledge also the traditional owners of the land from which I'm dialing today. I'm proudly dialing from Wurundjeri country, and the project that we're also discussing today is sitting on Jara country in Bendigo. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past and present, and obviously to extend that respect to all, all First Nation people. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it's going to work well. Here we go. All right. Just a second. Does that work? Share. Yep. Cool. And I go in presentation mode. Here we go. Fantastic. It's all uploaded for everyone. Yeah, working. Beautiful.
Yeah, all good, Bruno. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks heaps. So yeah, it's really exciting to be able actually to provide an overview and a project update on the cycling forecasting planning tool. We're incredibly fortunate to have the partnership, the continuous partnership of iMOVE CRC, of obviously, the Department of Transport and Planning that I represent today, the City of Greater Bendigo and RMIT. What I can say is that, this project is truly groundbreaking for us as a department, as state or agency. Why? Because our current models and modeling tools are very much car-based. They have if you want, a mobility bias in the settings, in the parameter settings that are behind those models, and that don't really allow to quantify accurately integrated land use and community and health and well-being benefits. Some of that is due to, I guess, the history of the institutions, of the planning institutions, and I guess transport agencies in the state. And also, there's a bit of a question of, I guess, planning maturity and professional standards. The great news is that this project is going to be able actually to help not only the state department, but other agencies to develop that maturity. So the model in a snapshot summary, the model is able to, and that's really the groundbreaking elements, so takeaway messages. The model is able to project and forecast new cycling infrastructures and really determine the uptake in terms of cycling demand and mode share. It's also able to, in that sense, optimize the future planning of cycling infrastructures and quantify, and that's really important, the economic benefits of infrastructure investments. And I guess the end goal is really to determine the most effective locations and prioritize different types of cycling infrastructure to build, which is really something that we are aiming to replicate. You're going to see that in the next slide. So basically, one of the things that is truly unique in this project is that regional Victoria is a bit of an ideal scale for not only active transport initiatives, but I guess cycling as a mode of transport per se. If you think about it, the vast majority of the trips are under 10 kilometers. In fact, cycling is ideal for anything under 3 kilometers. The vast majority of cycling trips is under 3 kilometers, and the vast majority of trips in regional Australia is under 10 kilometers. So you can really see that match between, I guess, what a human development scale is in a regional activity center. The second thing is that cycling offers a huge amount of benefits for regional communities. It can positively influence land use by reducing, I guess, urban sprawl, but also, provide not only the savings at an infrastructure level for all tiers of government, but a lot of improved physical and mental health outcomes, and I guess, obviously, reduce the traffic congestion pressure or the traffic pressure on the network. Ultimately, it does promote sustainable and active lifestyles. It does encourage also, I guess, a lot of, positive feedback loop at an intermodal level, and it also connects communities with their natural and urban surroundings, which is fantastic. I guess the game-changing element to the project is that ability to put forward project funding proposals. That's really the next steps for us. And to achieve that, what we will, I guess, be aiming to do and what the future could be looking like is really to replicate this case study in Bendigo to a state level and extend also to working projects. I'd love to also thank warmly, both Matt from the City of Greater Bendigo and Afshin from RMIT. Their teams are amazing, and it's an absolute pleasure to be working with them. Over to you, Matt. I stopped sharing. Just 1 second. Here we go.
Thanks, Bruno. I'll take my turn to share now. Thank you very much for having me here today to speak. And my name is Matt Curl, and I'm coordinator of active communities at the City of Greater Bendigo. I'd like to acknowledge that the city is on Dja Dja Wurrung and Taungurung country. I'm dialing in from Jarrah country today, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Here to, I guess, talk about a bit of a snapshot of the city and where we're at with our walking and cycling and how it links in with this project. So I guess the key kind of driver for us, strategic driver, is our walking and cycling strategy from 2019. We went through a really rigorous engagement process for this. It was 2 months. We recorded over 800 in-person interactions, over 500 surveys completed, and we also used CrowdSpot and had over 800 locations mapped as part of that, which was really useful for our planning. What we heard, probably nothing here that surprises anyone who's online today. So we heard from our residents that they really wanted to be separated from cars when riding a bike. They wanted our networks to be connected, and they wanted safe and comfortable road crossings. So it was all, I guess, pretty much key things that we've kind of heard over and over again. We also got some really good data in terms of where people felt comfortable riding, and really good local data for this. The city we have some really good, I guess, shared paths and protected paths, but they're not connected. And the majority of our cycling network is on road or a painted line on road. And as you can see from here, what we had wasn't really, I guess, our existing network doesn't cater to our population and where they want to ride a bike. So it was a significant barrier. And our response to that was to develop a protected walking and cycling network, which you can see here. So this is fully prioritised and costed. The pink is what we want to do. The green is what we have. So you can see that we've got still a lot of work to do. We currently have 65% of our population within 500 metres of a path, but it's not connected and it doesn't go anywhere. So the long-term aim is to have a network that is 90% of our population are within 500 metres of the path, and that's connected and fully connected across the whole of the city. It's a twofold approach as well. So the pink lines show, I guess, new sections of pathways or trails, but we're also on our existing network looking at fixing road crossings and gaps in our existing network, whether that's through raised safety platforms or pedestrian operated signals. So it's kind of a twofold approach in the way that we're addressing that. I guess the key challenge for us is that we have a great plan and a great framework, but without funding, it's about as useful as a bike with no wheels. So how do we fund it in a resource-constrained environment? And I guess that's where we got really excited when we were presented with the opportunity to partner with this project. And being able to strengthen our business cases by being able to really articulate what our economic benefits are, but also what our health benefits and our environmental benefits are from these projects. We see that as being a really key part of securing long-term funding for these projects and delivery of our network. And so that's probably the snapshot from the city. So thank you, and I'll hand over to Ashton.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Matt and Bruno. I also start sharing. You should be able to see my screen now. All right, perfect. Thanks, everyone. And as Jackie said, I'm going to give an overview of the progress to date for the project that we are having with Department of Transport and Planning and City of Greater Bendigo, which is a fantastic partnership, and you will see exactly why in this presentation. So I think the main thing is that you will see half of the project and progress today, and then the next webinar that we'll have later, you will see the rest of the basically tool that we are developing. So a little bit of a teaser to what is coming also I'm going to give in this presentation, but the final tool we'll have in the next webinar. I also want to start with an acknowledgement of the country. Sorry, okay. RMIT University acknowledges the people of Woiwurrung and Wonwurrung language groups of Eastern Kulin Nation on whose unceded land we conduct the business of our university, and we respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past and present. Okay. So I think Matt and Bruno provided a very good context about what this research is about and what this project is trying to achieve. But also maybe the way that I see it contributing to the discussion is that we all know what needs to be done. We know that we need to promote sustainable transport, active transport. We know that bike lanes are important. We know that safety is a major concern. But then the question is where to build first. And if we build, how much change will result from that? And this is something that we have had maybe for big projects happening many years now through lots of modelings, but that has been a big gap for active transport investments and projects, and that's exactly what we aim to do with this project, which is to build a virtual test bed, something that we can use for fast assessment of investments and before doing the big assessment at the end, or before building things and realizing, okay, they are not going to give us as much benefits as we expected. In a way, I also think that we are sort of rethinking the role of models in transport planning, because traditional approach was that we come up with proposed infrastructure investment, and then we do work with the modelers, with the strategic models, a lot of time to convert those into modeling assumptions and parameters, running the big model, and then writing the big business case at the end, and then making the decision. But the way I see we are approaching this problem in this project is a sort of an iterative approach, that rather than waiting to the end to have the full modeling output, and that's by that time you've probably spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's very rare to once you have all the modeling done and then decide and go, okay, it was not a good idea. I think that's an ideal case, but yeah, rarely until you get to that point, you have spent years on that proposal, and it's maybe too late to go back and change it significantly. So what we are proposing and we are doing here is an alternative way of thinking about role of modeling, which is having something easy to use, something that is fast and you can play with as you're thinking about your infrastructure investment project, and do the revising of the proposal at the conceptualization step, maybe. And then once you have a little bit of early results, some cost benefit estimates, maybe then you can go ahead and do the bigger modeling work or the more detailed economic evaluation. And what I mean by these types of playing with these types of tools is, for example, here is an example that I just created for illustration purposes. Here we have 1,000 cyclists or 100 cyclists going from north of the city to the center of the city. And what if we just build a bike lane somewhere? And then we do that, and then we see more cyclists are channeling through that road segment, and using the bike lane that is being added to that part of the city. So that's just quick thing that we can test and see what's the impact. And then next, what will happen if we block that segment of the road? For example, there is a construction, there is something happening. Are cyclists going to that point and then decided to switch to the alternative road, or no, they are actually getting spread all across? Or another thing would be, what if we add a new bike parking facility, for example? That's RMIT. I use RMIT as an example. And then you see that when we add sort of a bike destination, lots of cyclists are actually deviating or changing their path to get to that bike destination. So this is the type of toy model that I have in mind, that, okay, we can, if there is something that we can easily interact with and work with, and it doesn't need a huge team of advanced modelers to set up the model for you and run the model for you, then that can help better designing the types of interventions that or investments that we want to propose for cycling and active transport. Another I think opportunity that make this project more relevant is with activity-based modeling that now are becoming more and more common globally and also in Australia. There is the opportunity to actually properly model active transport, because the traditional approach in modeling, which was zone-based for step models, that was too coarse for being able to capture things that actually matter for decision to use a bike or not. So you actually need to care about demographics of the people. You need to care about the environments, how people interact with, their natural environment, their physical environment, how safe it is. And that's a very fine-grained thing to do in a strategic model. And with the shift towards activity-based modeling, that actually is becoming something that we can do. Now, I'm not claiming that we are going to do everything that matters for cycling in a strategic model, because that is a big ambition and we are moving towards that. But at least with these types of modeling, we can do a lot more. And we can create models that actually make sense to use for active transportation, and particularly cycling in this case. Okay, so this is a little bit of a background, because the project that we have with Department of Transport and City of Greater Bendigo, it's actually building on a work that we did a few years ago for Melbourne. which was to build an activity-based and agent-based transport model for Melbourne. And we developed all of the different components for this at RMIT, from building the transport network, where are the roads, what are the road attributes, building an activity-based transport demand for for Greater Melbourne, and also building the mode choice parameters and mode assignment model for the model. And then all the simulation and calibrations. And also we use that model to test a few infrastructure change scenarios. So yeah, these are the publications there, but a few examples that we use that modeling that we did for Greater Melbourne. We use it to test impact of green wave for cycling speed or travel time, which is when you as a cyclist are moving towards intersection, you don't need to wait behind red lights and they are green so that you can move forward, or test the impact of strategic cycling corridors across Greater Melbourne and what are the impacts of those. So building on this framework and this earlier work that we did for Greater Melbourne, we decided there is a fantastic opportunity to make it something bigger, something better, something more relevant to what government is doing. And that's where the idea of Bendigo activity-based model basically came true and is happening, which is we are still continuing based on the work that we did for Greater Melbourne, but now we have a more alignment with the Victorian government's VTEM2 modeling, which we are using its synthetic population as our starting point. So by synthetic population, it basically means how many people are living where. And that makes our model comparable, or something that we can basically talk back to the modelings that government is doing, because we are starting from the same starting point. Also, the investment part, the cost-benefit extensions, and the iterative scenario testing parts are things that we are adding to this model that we are building for Bendigo. And also the whole components of the model are also becoming something that we need to build for Bendigo, which is a regional city. And it has been a little bit of a challenge there, because when you go from a capital city to a regional city, there will be a lot of things that you need to rethink, and particularly data sets, limited number of the data that you have. We have much richer data for a capital city like Melbourne, and that was one of the considerations that we had to consider. Also, you have a lot of trips that come from outside the Greater Bendigo boundary to Bendigo, or from Bendigo to outside. So you can't really model a regional city in isolation. So you need to think about all of those things. So a lot of interesting development had to happen there, which I'm going to talk about today. So as I mentioned, webinar today is about the first half, which is to build the inputs, to build the model, and to make it work all together. The next webinar that we'll have next year, I think in February, will happen around the cost-benefit analysis tool and the interactive cycling investment scenario testing tool that we are building. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are not modeling Bendigo in isolation. We are modeling the state, trips and network, but with much more detailed modeling for Greater Bendigo region. And this is our approach, for example, for building the road network, that we have a high-level network for the whole for the whole Victorian state, but then for the Greater Bendigo part, we have a much detailed network that has all the active transport-related attributes. For building the network, we are using OpenStreetMap, which is an open source data set. Lots of government and non-government groups are now using it, so it's well used. And also in Victoria, we had we were lucky that the Department of Transport also did a lot of good work on making OpenStreetMap more useful for us and for them also, which is fantastic. So a little bit of details about road network generation. The types of things that we create based on OpenStreetMap is what are the road. So first of all, geometries of the road, where they are, and road type, hierarchy of the roads, arterial, collector, local, off-road, and motorway. Speed limits, we add them to the road network. Cycleway type, which is whether they are off-road, separated lane, a mixed traffic, or an on-the-street bike lane. Also, we added tree canopy to the network, which for that we use the quick map vegetation dataset. We use the buffer-based approach to find the tree coverage of the road segments across Greater Bendigo, and added that also as an attribute to the road network. Another built environment or natural environment attribute that we add is the slope, for which we are using digital elevation model of the region. We also joined public transport network to the road network, which for buses we are actually joining them to the roads, so you get the actual routes for each bus. For public transport, for rail transit, we are using a pseudo network, so it's not interacting with the road network. They have their own separated network, but the stations, they're all in the locations that they should be. We are also using the DTP's dataset to add school zones so that we have dynamic speed limit for throughout the day. And another addition that we do with the network is level of traffic stress calculation, because bike lanes, yeah, we really like bike lanes, but bike lanes are, they could vary very much based on how they are designed and based on how, people actually experience safety and stress on a bike lane. So if you are going on a bike lane that has no physical separation and the road is 60 km/h, you're not going to feel safe. You're going to feel stressed. But if there is a simple bike lane, just a paint on the road, but the speed limit is 40, you feel much more less stressful. Or if it's 30, you feel much more less stressful cycling on those road segments. So one of the things that we did with this project was not just looking at bike lanes, but actually looking at a combination of different factors, from bike lanes, road type, traffic volume, and speed limit. And also a number of things that we added to this was whether there is a proper amount of separation from car parks, and also whether the width of bike lanes are adequate. So if there is the width of the lane is less than 1.2 kilometers, we just don't consider that as a adequate bike lane width. And if it's a shared bike lane with parking, so you have a bike lane and a car park on top, that's not a bike lane. To be honest, that's just a car park that there is a paint underneath. So we are not going to consider those. So I think this is a much more detailed and maybe informative approach to use for finding whether there is proper infrastructure for people to cycle or not. Okay, so that was about building the road network. And next, what we have is building the demand, building the basically the people that are supposed to use that road network to go from A to B. So for that, as I mentioned, we start from VTEM2 and synthetic population of VTEM2, and also Victorian integrated survey of travel and activity. The first step is for us to create clusters of people that behave or go to similar types of destinations. So I will explain each of these more in the next slides, but here I just want to give an overview of how it works. So first, we group people or cluster people based on the types of activity or activity patterns that they have during the day. And then we create a 24-hour activity chain for each of these synthetic population agents or synthetic travelers, as we call them. Then for each of those, we have a process. We have built a process to assign activity locations. So if it's a work location, we have a process for that. If it's an education location, we have a process for that. And if it's also a secondary location, which basically it's going to a shop or a park or socializing somewhere in a cafe or somewhere, we also have built a process for that. And finally, we do a mode assignment using a mode choice model that also considers the clusters that I mentioned. And I'm going to explain each of these in detail in my following slides. Okay, for demand generation or for activity chain generations, as I said, we start from creating clusters of people that behave similarly. And for that, we have grouped people based on their primary activity. So whether they are part-time workers, full-time workers, retired preschools, primary school, secondary school, tertiary education, or other. So you can see different categories that we have. So we looked at each of these categories based on their main activity, and we looked at the probability or patterns of activities that each of these do during a day in the travel survey. So, for example, a full-time worker and part-time worker, they probably have the similar activity distribution during the day, go to the work and then maybe, I don't know, a supermarket or to a gym and then go back home. Whereas, we found that retired or other categories have similar probability of activities throughout the day. Tertiary education students had a different type of pattern, and then primary and secondary schools also we found to have a different distribution of activities, and preschoolers were as another category. So by doing this clustering, we sort of grouped people that we have in the travel survey in our synthetic population based on the likelihood of different activities that they have during the day. And then for each of these travelers, based on the cluster that they are assigned to, we create activity patterns. So for example, this is a full-time worker and part-time worker cluster. What we have here is the distribution of activities, home activity, other activity, social recreation, study activity, pick up, drop off, deliver, and shop and work activity distribution throughout the day. And comparing what we have generated, which is orange, and then what we have in the travel survey, which is the blue-green, I think, color. Okay, so by doing this, we actually are adding a lot more accuracy to creating activity chains rather than just creating a similar activity chain for everyone, or just looking at workers and not caring about anyone else, which has been usually the case for strategic modeling that has been happening. Another step is to build or assign the locations of activities. So for work location, for all of these locations, we use the address points from big address dataset. So we have all the address points and all the uses that they have: commercial, education, home, park, work, etc. And to assign the work location for each traveler, we use a combination of census journey to work. So people moving from SA3 to SA3, and then people moving within SA3s from SA1 to SA1. So we take these distributions from census, and we also take the distance from home to work distribution from travel survey. And we use we have a algorithm that uses the combination of all of these, and for each travelers finds a likely destination, a work destination address for each of them. For education location, for primary students, we assign them to the nearest school from their home location. For secondary and tertiary education, we have a bit more detailed process that looks at the distance, but also the capacity of the schools and universities and TAFE for assigning those locations. For secondary activity location, we have built a process that basically tries to find the most likely location for example, going to a supermarket near your primary activities. So if you have home and work as primary activities of an individual, then the process tries to find, for example, and if you're in your activity chain, you are supposed to go to a shop or a park around your work or after work or before getting to home, then the algorithm tries to find the most likely location around these anchor points. So we are using these as anchor points and use a gravity-based model to find the most likely location for park and for commercial to go and do some shopping. And finally, for the mode choice modeling, we again use the Victorian Integrated Survey of Travel Activity dataset, which has about 66,000 trips. And this is a distribution that you can see. We have majority of trips being by car, 10% public transport, some walking, and about 1.5% cycling. And also the trip purposes you see in the graph in the bottom. And what we did for this, which is also sort of an innovation, because we are not just building a simple mode choice model, we are also doing a cluster-based approach for the mode choice modeling, which means that we have divided the population based on their main activity into worker, a student, and other. And for each of these, also divided them into the two genders of male and female. So you can see the distribution of the sample once we break it down to those. And for each of these, we estimated a different mode choice model. So a male worker will have different preferences for cycling infrastructure, for travel time, for travel costs to a male or a female student. And that was our preferred way of doing the mode choice modeling. And if there are questions about why we chose it this way, I'm happy to explain further. And this is the equation that we included for the mode choice modeling. I don't want to go into details, but basically the elements of the choice model are travel time for all modes, travel cost for all modes, and level of traffic stress for cycling trips, and particularly the amount of the trip that you go on high stress, so level 3 and 4. So for now, the way that we assign routes to cycling trip for the mode choice has been by an algorithm that we built, which is an impedance-based shortest path cycling routing algorithm that people deviate up to 10% to find a lower level of traffic stress path. And I think that's very much strongly based on the literature, but it's something that we can improve, and we are working on that, and I will explain. For cars, we are assuming that they go shortest travel time on a dynamic network, which means that we will have congestion also modeled. For public transport, we use GTFS real schedules for different types of public transport that exist. And for walking, we assume that people go shortest distance on footpath network. As I mentioned, for the cycling route assignment, we are now working on a survey that we finished a few months ago, and it was actually very well received. Very much appreciate the help that City of Greater Bendigo provided for the data collection. And this was actually an innovation that we did in this project, which was using this map-based survey, and we asked people to draw their cycling route for us in a map. And that's it is an interactive map survey service that we used for this. And I think this is actually very useful because it really simplifies the process of finding the routes that cyclists take. And you don't need to go and collect the data through GPS and all those lengthy and costly processes that they are very much valuable, but there is a very significant amount of effort that is needed for those. But with this approach that we have used for City of Greater Bendigo, it's much simpler, and we can really easily collect a lot of data from cyclists about where they go and what they like and what they don't. So for the survey that we finished recently, we had 300 participants from City of Greater Bendigo, and they drew about 450 routes for us. So where they go from home to work, to shop, to education, to visit family and friends, 250 favorite spots, 330 stressful intersections, and 260 unpleasant spots. And we are going to use these to improve our route assignment. So rather than just assuming that they deviate 10%, we are actually going to use the results of this survey for that. Okay, so once now we have all of those put together, we have also done a large amount of work on calibration and validation for activity scheduling. We have calibrated the start time, duration, and proportion of activities. Work locations, we have used ABS, SA3, and travel survey data for work location assignment, calibration, and validation. For other activities, SA2. For mode share, again, travel survey. And traffic volume is something that we are still working on, and we are currently using the average daily traffic data and bicycle network Super Tuesday data and public transport usage data for that. So once we put them all together, this is what we get. So, oops. Okay. So this is what we get, which is a model that we have every single traveler going from their origin to their destination on the road network, and we can use it to see how people are interacting with the road network and what happens if we change something. So this is an example from the current version of the model that we have for Bendigo. And this is, so different colors here are whenever someone starts an activity. So it's going too fast for me to explain. But this is basically morning peak. So you see a lot of people going to the center of Bendigo for different types of activities. We see congestion is starting to build up. And in this visualization, I'm showing activities when they start. You see a color basically shining. So we have a lot of study activity, work activity happening around morning peak. And we do this for the whole 24-hour. And also, as I said, we are including a version of the model in an online tool that a planner can go and interact with it, and they change a bike lane from today have a bike lane to not to have a bike lane, or from having a bike lane, sorry, from not having a bike lane to having a bike lane, and then seeing the results of that. Okay, I'm not sure how much over time I went. I hope not too much. But next steps is, as I said, improving the assignment of the routes for cyclists. Also adding the cost benefit parameters to the model at the end, so that once we get the mode shift and the route change results of the model, it goes into a cost benefit analysis module that estimates the benefits and basically generates something that we can all use and understand for that purpose. And then we are building the user interface for the scenario testing tool, and we have all the cloud-based back-end workflow of it working. The front end is also looking very good. So soon we will have that also released, and we are going to work on the pilot testing of the online tool currently. And just to wrap up, as I said, this has been a fantastic collaboration between state and local governments, and we have had a lot of inputs from them, from providing the data and modelings to helping us with the data collection. So that was a fantastic collaboration. I very much thank everyone from our partners and also from our project staff and investigators, particularly Dr. Sapan Tiwari, Ryan Turner, Steve Pemberson, and Atefe Soleimani Rudi from RMIT, who basically did all of the works that I presented. And it's basically their hard work that I made it possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Afshin. And I think we've seen quite a significant number of questions coming through there, and that was a substantial amount of information all in one go. So I was thinking, with that in mind, we might just jump in and tackle some of the later questions that came through because they're most relevant to what you just presented. So I'll jump into the Q&A. So what data are you planning to use to help improve the cycling route choice mode?
So for the route assignment, what we are doing currently is, as I said, an impedance-based approach that is based on the international literature. And for that, already we are seeing a good alignment with Bicycle Network Super Tuesday counts data. Also, City of Bendigo has a number of counters in the city that we are also using that to compare whether we can replicate the patterns that we see. I think the other data set that, as I said, we are currently working on is the routes that people actually draw in our map-based survey. And that is actually a very useful thing for us because we can really see how much a person deviates from the shortest path to have a route with lower traffic stress and use that to assign realistic paths to each of the cyclists. So that's our next step, to use that as an input to improve the current algorithm that we have for route assignment.
Fantastic, thank you. There's a few questions coming through just about what things have or haven't been included in your calculations, such as there's one asking about road damage and whether things like dark times of day and night has been factored in. Did you want to sort of make a general response about those items?
Yeah, so there are two things there. I think there is one that's what are the things that we included in the road network model, and what are the things that happen in the back end of the cycling behavior change model. So the road network is very rich. For that, we have included a lot of things: greenery, slope, bike lanes type, car parking, and also we did some work on the street lighting, but we didn't ended up using that because the data set was we had some IP concerns there. But that's very much rich in that sense. I think the main thing for us is that the more of those that we include in the behavioral component of the modeling work, the more data we need to calibrate the model. So right now, at this stage of the model, the modeling work is very much focused on the level of traffic stress for cyclists and also for different demographic groups that I mentioned: workers, non-worker, male and female, all the categories that I showed. So right now, we are much more focused on those.
Okay, fantastic. I'm very happy with the level of enthusiasm for questions. I just can't quite keep up with how many are coming through, but I'm just going to jump to the top and get some of the more patient people here. Going over to you, Bruno, there's a question about whether are you aware of any other similar projects or activities in other states, and what would be the approach to share with the other states?
No, thanks for that. That's a great question. Look, there's a number of tools and I guess iterations of those tools that are under development in both interstate and I guess internationally. There's a heat tool that is quite a good reference, good benchmark. That's a European Union tool. And I believe that in Queensland and New South, there's a little bit of work in that space as well. What's really interesting is that I guess there's a good opportunity, obviously, to work also with the consultancy field. I know that there's been some iterations and discussions of those with a working element of that. And I know also that back in Europe and I guess internationally, you've got a few tools that are available and that allow to project some scenarios. I'm thinking of Remix for people who know the tool, who are familiar with it. There's also a few others. I think, VLC has another one. But yeah, we're very open to collaborate, very open, obviously, to, I guess, cross-pollinate. This is a project that has not necessarily an open-ended IP. It's more that it has the aim and an objective actually to be able to benefit all users really and all agencies. So if you've got any idea in terms of replicability or any if there's any stakeholder on the call that are interested to know more about this tool, we'd love to catch up.
Great. And I think basically that is saying that the tool will be available outside or beyond Victoria. Is that right?
No, I haven't quite said that.
Yeah.
I would say probably the aim, the greater aim, would be exactly that, and be
Yeah.
great. Actually, yeah, I think there's a lot of work to get it right in Bendigo first.
Yeah.
Jackie, that's the main objective of this project. And
Yeah.
after that, I know that Afshin and his team will be very enthusiastic and will be too, I guess, to calibrate the tool so that it can work at a state
Yeah.
level, a statewide level. And on that, I have to also thank the proactive and continuous participation of our modeling planning teams. They've been fantastic. And if we can get a integrated intermodal planning tool at some point, extrapolating on this project and expanding the scope of VLM or another tool, we'll be in a really good place to capture intermodal feedback loops and really optimize the transport network for generations to come. So once this is really up and running, we can potentially, see how it could be working at I don't know, at a Australia-wide level or maybe global level. I don't know.
Yeah.
Step by
Oh,
step.
it's a good thought for sure. We've had a few questions come through in the registrations, but also during the webinar, just talking a little bit about how we're engaging or planning to engage, given this is a progress webinar rather than a completion webinar, with the local communities. Would any of you want to give me a few insights into that? This might be one for you, Matt, as well.
Yeah, so I guess, as I mentioned, we did a fair bit of engagement to kind of inform our strategy position, which has, I guess, informed this work and our response from an infrastructure perspective. We haven't really engaged heavily for this project specifically, other than the mapping and I guess that request for that mapping information that Ashton shared and how that, I guess, influences the modelling. In terms of, I guess, future engagement with our community, we're about to roll out a couple of new key shared paths, the Low Line and Mundy Street shared path projects. Both those projects have an evaluation plan associated with them, which includes qualitative surveys and, I guess, an attempt to get some feedback through the community on our treatment responses on a project base. But other than that, that's probably about where we're at for engagement.
Yeah, thank you. And just on the similar notes, we had a question come through with the registrations as well, just about how do we maximize the value from infrastructure investment through behavior change programs. So I guess, that being, we can build the infrastructure, but people have to use it. And we're getting a really good understanding through Ashton's research about what that actually means and how we can generate or have what the demand looks like. But did you have any more comments about the behavioural side of things?
Yes. Yep. So I guess our strategy kind of, to sum it down, was in, I guess, three kind of key areas of focus. Infrastructure was one, which we've spoken about really well today. That behaviour and activation is the second part of that. We have an activation plan sitting in project brief form that we're about to start work on. So that will look at all those behaviour change interventions and those minor infrastructure interventions that we can, I guess, support, I guess, greater uptake, and especially when we roll out new pieces of infrastructure, how do we actually get people to use it? So that is part of it. It's not part of this project, but again, it's something that we are thinking about and about to start doing some work on.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Shin, I've given you a little break from the questions, so I might just target you again. I'm going to jump back to a few that have been coming through in the Q&A, specifically talking about the data and the Vista data that you were using, which was from a few years ago, and there may be some behavioural changes since then. So what would be the plan to recalibrate or to be able to calibrate for these kind of things with the model?
Yeah, so I think that's so at least for us at this stage, we are working on the base year of 2018, which is aligned with the version of the synthetic population that we are working on and the behavior element that we are adding to that. And as we are working on this, we have more newer versions of the travel survey coming. So when we started the project, it was only 2022 and 2023 data that was released. Now we have also 23 and 24 released. So as that is getting bigger and bigger and getting to the size that we can use to readjust the models, assumptions based on that, that's something that we have in mind. But at least for now, we have a good alignment with the synthetic population that we use and the travel data that we have. And I also just, while I have the mic, I just also wanted to say that the thing about the data sets that we are using is that we have had the consideration of scaling up always in our design. So a lot of the work that we do uses universal data sets like GTFS or OpenStreetMap, and or state level data sets like travel survey, VTM data sets, and like vegetation data sets from the Victorian government. So I think for us, it's now we are in the position that we can easily scale up to the to the state, easily in the sense that we have done everything that is needed to be done. It's still going to be a huge amount of work for calibration and going there. But at least the design of the project made it possible for us now being in the position that we can use all the methodologies that we built to go to the state. To the national level, that needs a bit more work because the travel survey across different states, they vary so much, and we need to do a lot of work on that. But at least for the state, we are in a good position.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I think we've got time maybe for just one more question. Just going to note that there's been quite a few come through, and post-webinar I may get together with our speakers and just see if we can respond to a few of those when we post it on our website with the recording after the event. But just a final question from Rachel. How old were the student group examined, and is there a children's component to the research?
Yeah, so I think for students, that was interesting for us because we didn't, so we aggregated high school, so under 18 as the one group for the mode choice element work that we did. So high school and primary school and preschool. I think one thing that we found was because they can cycle on footpath, so the level of traffic stress we didn't find to be a significant factor based on existing data. So all we are doing is looking at what people already are doing, and whether based on that, can we see how much a person values something versus another thing. So at least for now, one thing that we realized for students was that the current approach that kids can cycle on footpaths, that's fantastic. But the issue is that for us, at least, is that then we can't really easily distinguish how much a cyclist that is, I don't know, like 15 years old or 12 years old currently is valuing separated bike lanes versus a bike path that is off-road. So we don't have that level of details in our data set, and we didn't find the model to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But for adults, they were all sensitive to level of traffic stress.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. As I mentioned before, this is a progress webinar, and Avshina mentioned that there'll be another one next year presenting the actual outcomes of the project. So we'll all look forward to hopefully seeing you at that. But in the meantime, I would really love to thank our three speakers today for giving up their time to share this excellent research, and look forward to hearing from them again next year. The webinar will be available on the iMOVE website, usually within a day to 2 days. So feel free to rewatch, and we will try and respond to any of the questions we haven't been able to. So thanks to all our speakers and to all our attendees today. I think we can all agree with the comments coming through saying what excellent work's gone on to date, and we look forward to seeing the outcomes. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.